From the Middle is a founding member of Odd Pods Media. Hello, everyone, and thank you for tuning in to episode number 273 of From the Middle. This week, we are two middle class guys living in the middle of America and the middle chapters of our lives with points of view somewhere in the middle. This is Dylan. It's me and Kendall this week. Corey's gone, so if he's your favorite host, feel free to skip this one, but don't because this is a great episode. We talk about mayonnaise and ranch and the Midwest, and it's awesome. And then in the back end, we talk a little bit about some of our purchasing preferences on top of college football and some of the things we're streaming. We have a lot of fun in this episode. We give a great shout out to Artiest Man at the end. Make sure to make it to that part of the episode because you're going to want to hear a little bit more. This one was a ton of fun. We hope you enjoy. Until next week. Thanks. Check it out.
Oh, for the love. Sorry, just clearing my Mountain Dew hole.
I got my phone hole cleaned today.
That's where you keep it?
You're so cerebral and you're so developed and evolved.
I always have a little bit of a panic every time we start an episode, and I know I've hit the record button, but typically within 2 to 3 minutes, my brain is like, did I hit the record button? It's sort of like leaving the house and locking the door and shutting the garage door, recently repaired garage door. And it's sort of like you've just gotten out of reach in your rearview mirror and you're like, crap, did I?
How many times have you ever turned around? Is it that bad? Have you ever turned around to check?
A few times, typically only when we're going to be gone for a while, like gone for the whole day or on vacation, or it's like, gosh, I don't remember. You're on such like mental cruise control. Yeah. You're just like, I'm sure I did. I'm sure I did it. That's why like when I'm leaving now for an extended period, I'm like, I rattle the door and I try to make a note like you're rattling the door handle. It's definitely locked.
Yeah.
I
understand, dude. You know, it's not been helpful, but then a separate thing that has been helpful. One is my wife has gotten a phone call before from the neighbors across the street telling us you forgot to close your garage door. Oh. And so we've had that confirmation twice, I think, from him. And it's like, oh, shoot, that means we do it sometimes.
Yeah.
Which
so that doesn't makes you all the more paranoid that you might miss.
But what has helped is so we got a couple of Ring Video stick-up cameras years ago, and one on the front door, one on the back door, and one on the garage. And I mean, you name the Prime Day or Black Friday situation later and got like a really good deal on like another pair of them and had ideas on where to put them, and which is why I got them. And then like that turned out to like not make sense or not work out. And so I ended up just like, for no other reason, like I put one in the basement just so that we can like, I can turn that one on from time to time just to see if the basement's flooding. If we're away from home or whatever, and it's raining because we have a sump pump and I'm always paranoid about that. I can see if the floor is wet remotely.
Smart.
And then the other thing is I put one, we have one outside of our garage door looking at our driveway. I said, yeah, we're going ahead. Go ahead. And I'm just going to put one in the garage. If for no other reason, I can see the garage door from it. And now we can answer that question for ourselves and we don't have to turn around. So maybe that's a tip for people. Ring stick up camera. Now you do have to get roped into some kind of a subscription service. However, the hardware itself, very affordable when you buy it at the right time.
Yeah. So you heard it here first. Tips from Kendall. Watch out for a wet downstairs and always guard your back door is what I'm hearing.
I'm glad you picked up on what I was trying to throw down there. That was
beautiful. I'm just over here wishing for some emotional support burritos. You know what I mean? Like Just a few hefty, beanie, meaty burritos would go a really long way. How you doing this week, buddy? How's your weekend gone?
Doing okay. The emotional support burrito thing was oddly specific.
Yeah.
Do you is that something you do often? Emotional support burritos,
I
or
mean,
is maybe all burritos are emotional support.
it's
burritos?
emotional support, parentheses, insert thing I'm hungry for, close parentheses.
I hear you.
Yeah.
I hear you. Yeah. No, I'm doing well. I'm doing well. Today was a very mayonnaise-y kind of day. I'm diving into a world. This is one of those things that, like, I don't even know if I should talk about it because no one cares. But I care. My day today has been excited because of mayonnaise. And
Really?
my wife and I, we try to do like a responsible thing of buying less plastic, like single-use plastic items. And so, like, we've made some switches over the years, and like, we don't buy plastic carton milk that much anymore. Sometimes we do if it gets stupid expensive or like they're giving it away, but we buy paper carton milk. And we buy mayonnaise in a glass jar. And you used to be able to get like Hellman's and others in glass jars. You can't anymore. Everybody continues to move away or moving toward and harder to plastic on everything. I feel like it all started with Snapple. Anyway.
Curse you, Snapple.
Curse you, Snapple. So Sir Kensington's mayonnaise is one that I have grown to really enjoy at home. Comes in the glass jar, and we make that little small financial sacrifice just to kind of make our point that says, hey, you don't have to use plastic all the time. Some of us are going to stop buying it. And my wife was like, why don't we just make our own mayonnaise? And I'm like, well, you don't make your own. That's stupid. That's dumb. That's not, I mean, I know how mayonnaise making works. I have seen videos in the past of like whisking, and if you get it wrong, then you ruin the whole thing. And then if you're making raw mayonnaise, then like it's going to be good for like what, 3 days a week at like tops in the fridge. After you spent all of this time and effort, like whisking in a bowl to make mayonnaise, and that just doesn't seem worth it to me. Until like I knew about but hadn't seriously looked into the idea of using an immersion blender to make mayonnaise. And holy crap, people, I feel like everybody needs to know and understand this from someone like me who didn't want to do this, because like I'm sure there's a catch or a trick to it, but by golly, I did it today. It's like ingredients that we literally always have anyway. And I made mayonnaise in about 45 seconds. What? It's that easy. It's that easy.
And what's the shelf life on this fancy
so the shelf life, if you do it that way, it's still only like a week. But the point is the upfront effort into it is 45 seconds. Like, that's fine for something that lasts a week. I'll go ahead and make a small batch, a small amount of that for a week's worth.
I was just going to say, like, once you get it down, you can probably just cut all the ingredients in half and just make a lot smaller batch.
Just make a lot smaller batch. Or like, I mean, there's been times, if you decide that you want to make BLTs, and you're like, oh shoot, we used the last of the mayonnaise a couple days ago. Like, I could literally have mayonnaise done by the time you even got out of the driveway to go pick some up. Like, you can make it on demand. It's really that easy. It really, really is. Now I'm playing around a little bit with ratios and flavor and of different kinds of, acids or whatever, but it's really that easy. I made 2 different kinds of mayonnaise today because I'm playing around with flavor and testing them against my Sir Kensington.
You really whisked me away with that story. If you haven't figured it out, Corey's gone, so we're going to try to shove a bunch of puns in this episode just for him. But seriously, I'm intrigued, and I really want to try whatever ends up being like a flight of your delicious mayonnaise once you've got some flavors down.
You know what's disgusting is doing research on on mayonnaise and looking at a bunch of taste tests and just watching people spoon mayonnaise into their mouths. It's most folks do what I did, which is like you put a little bit on a spoon and you just kind of like lick a tiny bit of it off or something, or put some on a cracker or something. And then there's other people who are just scarfing a tablespoon of mayonnaise at a time.
What feels true is that if you're the kind of person that's going to go through the effort of homemaking mayonnaise in trying different flavors, you might as well just throw it on some bread with meat and cheese and make a sandwich to test it. You know what I mean? Like just go
Sure.
through, because it already changes the flavor so much once you combine it with other things.
Mm-hmm.
Might as well just make, even if you just take a slice of bread and cut it in half and throw some meat and cheese on half of it, just to make
Mhm.
a little half sandwich crostini morsel or whatever it would be. Just do that. Try it that way. See how it goes.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. My kids and I went the cracker route after school, tasting my two mayonnaises plus
Fair.
Sir Kensington, which we still had in the fridge. So I'm in the research phases, but like I wasn't expecting it to go well. My expectation was like I was going to try what I saw in the video and then would be like, well, this is bullshit, and then move on with my life. But I wasn't like that, and
Mhm.
you can add a step of pasteurizing the egg yolks, which gives you like a month shelf life if
Hmm.
you do that, and that
Yeah.
doesn't seem hard to do.
That makes
So
sense.
I might do that and make larger batches, but I really don't need to. Like you can, it's seriously that easy. If you have an immersion blender, it is that easy to make mayonnaise.
And how much does an immersion blender go for on Amazon? That's got to be cheap enough, right?
Yeah, I don't think it's all that cost prohibitive.
There you go. Everybody, I want to see vats of mayonnaise, barrels of mayonnaise, and the cracker and cheese parties are going to be off the chain. Also, now I feel like we need to discuss ranch, and then we can officially make this the most Midwestern episode we've ever done here on From the Middle.
Let's do it. Go ahead. Do you have a ranch topic?
Well, funny enough, I didn't, but now I do. So
Yeah.
we talked about Bojangles opening up a long time ago near us.
Right.
We
Yeah.
moved up from the south, and it feels like, in hindsight, it feels like kind of a small format restaurant. Like it's smaller. I don't think they have the full menu because we looked it up before.
I
And then
see.
what ours actually has, it doesn't have all the sides and things. And I think what they're known for, as I'm now figuring out, is a couple things. They're like Bowberry biscuits and shakes. And then their chicken has just a little bit of heat to it. So, like, my wife and daughter don't like it. A little too spicy for the Midwest. North Carolina probably goes really well. But the interesting thing is, one time we went and I said, I'd like one of each of your sauces. And they said, oh, you get so many included with your meal and the rest are going to be extra. I said, that's fine. Because part of the fun for me is obviously the food. But when you're getting chicken and fries, the sauce is kind of what makes it more fun.
You gotta sample. I totally get you.
And that was the last time we went. And that was probably 8 or 9 months ago. And I tried the chicken, which is a little spicy, but not really for me. I'd be okay eating it. But the problem is, none of the sauces were good. And I thought, kind of kills the whole thing. Like, if you, for me at least, maybe other people disagree, but if you are going to put that much effort into like fast food chicken, Chick-fil-A works because the Chick-fil-A sauce and the Polynesian sauce, and they've got really good sauce options. Historically, McDonald's chicken worked because it was so cheap.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like if this is your thing and you're going to bring it up to the Midwest, you at least have to get ranch that's on par with the high quality ranch we have available in the Midwest.
Yeah.
Because you're getting the pants beat off of you in sauce because they were all garbage. Hot, steamy garbage sauces.
Yeah.
And so it's a problem. And sometimes I get really excited because we'll order takeout and get extra ranch from places like Longhorns or Texas Roadhouse that have good ranch.
Yeah.
And then I use it for like a week with other stuff like pizza and chicken from places. So I didn't have a ranch story until now, but I do. And that's Bojangles. If you're listening, your sauces suck. And if you want to survive in the Midwest with your Southern roots and spicy chicken, you need better sauces for sure. Like probably worse than McDonald's. And nobody goes in there really expecting a lot out of the sauces.
McDonald's sweet and sour sauce is the best sweet and sour sauce on the restaurant business.
Is that maybe the only exception? So, okay. So
I,
then
I don't even try the other ones, so I don't even know. I know that they've come out with a bunch of new ones. I've been team sweet and sour sauce since I was a kid.
maybe that was a bad example. Who has bad sauces like Burger King or Wendy's? Are their sauces
Burger
bad?
King for sure.
Okay.
Burger King for sure.
Put them in there with Burger King then.
Yeah.
Food is fine. Bad sauces.
Yeah.
Kind of kills
I
them.
get you. I completely agree. Like, I mean, Cane's is what everybody is screaming right now. Like, Cane's works because of their sauce.
Yeah.
Cane's is so bold to say, we're not even going to offer you another one. We have sauce and ketchup.
Yep.
We don't ask for honey mustard. We don't have that. We have cane sauce, and that's what you want. Trust us. And you know what? They're right every single time.
Totally
They're
right.
absolutely right.
Or also respectable answer is I'll eat it plain because it's still delicious.
It's still delicious.
But the cane sauce is so good. And that's all you need. You don't need 8 bad sauces, Bojangles. You just need 1 or 2 really good ones.
Yeah.
That's
I mean,
it.
if you don't want to go through the rigmarole of doing R&D and making your own ranch, which I mean, you should.
You should.
But I mean, just pick something that either says Hidden Valley or Marzetti on it, and the Midwest will be happy with you at that point.
You could
Like,
also,
that's bare minimum.
yeah, you could also take that and add a little bit of seasoning to just give it a little more flavor, and it would be head and shoulders above. And that's the thing. Even all the pizza places in town are like just beating them up on high quality ranch, let alone the carry out restaurants. You know, it's not even a competition. So
It isn't.
if you live in the Midwest and you like ranch and mayonnaise as much as we do, you don't need to tell us. We already know.
There's a world that combines the two in homemade ranch dressing. A lot of people who have tried to make ranch dressing themselves at home, they're using mayonnaise as a base because that's what everybody tells you to do. And the problem with that is, in my experience, has always been now you have ranch dressing that just tastes like mayonnaise way too much. It's mayonnaise-y ranch dressing, and that's not what I want. So, like, after a long time of trying different tips and tricks and cut it with sour cream, cut it with buttermilk, don't use mayonnaise and use Greek yogurt. Well, then you just have a ranch that tastes crappy in a different way. And
Right.
is what you have there. I've done that too. The first mayonnaise that I made was super bland, had like no tang to it whatsoever. And when I tasted it, I thought to myself, wow, this is super bland. Like, I would miss normal mayonnaise on a sandwich, but you know what? Maybe this is the kind of mayonnaise I need to make ranch dressing at home.
Mm.
And so I have ranch dressing in the fridge right now that I made with that, which tasted okay, but I used granulated garlic and onion, and that stuff takes some time to sit and percolate.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to try that tomorrow and see if, but I do know that it's not a mayonnaise-y tasting ranch. So my friends, if you have run into the same problem I have with trying to make up a ranch real quick, or other sauces, because I'm known for I like to dip things and I like to make sauces. Before I dip things, if we don't have a sauce, I'll make a sauce. And oftentimes mayonnaise is step one. Having a super creamy and homogeneous mixture of a base that mayonnaise provides you that is a little bit more flavor neutral, I think is going to be very handy for me. So I'm thinking I'm going to keep 2 mayonnaise recipes in my fridge at all times.
Yeah.
The sandwich and salad mayo and the mix-in mayo.
That's great. I would offer this up to Bojangles, but I don't feel like it. I have my grandmother's ranch recipe.
Ooh.
And don't need any other ones. I'm happy. Good. They can't have it, but they can try to steal somebody else's and make that. And potentially hot take, buttermilk ranch is overrated.
Really?
Not that good. Little too sweet sometimes. Don't care for it.
Do you have a favorite ranch brand?
I I I think the problem is there's such good quote homemade ranch from like
Mhm.
restaurants and stuff, and I'm sure they're just modifying or using something else, and I've never quite pinned down what some of them are using.
Yeah.
I want to say I think it's Ken's is
Mm.
what I'm told is one of the better ranches that comes in a bottle. So I if I'm going to the store, I'm probably looking for that. And I'll give a little bit of a shout to, I think Olive Garden has like a Parmesan ranch or
Yeah.
something that's a little bit different. Those are, but you can't use the Parmesan ranch for like pizza like we would. It's or
It's a little
chicken
more
tenders.
specific.
It's like a salad dressing.
It's like an Olive Garden thing.
Yeah,
I didn't
but
even
I've
realize
heard
Olive Garden had something other than their own Italian dressing.
yeah, they have the Italian, light Italian, and then they have whatever they're like Parmesan ranches. Pretty good for salads. Can't use it for anything else. But if that's what you're buying it for, in other parts of the country that are weird that don't like ranch on more things, then there you go.
That's right. I'm a I'm a Marzetti guy myself.
Hmm.
Specific, there's two kinds of Marzetti. There's the stuff on the shelf, and there's the stuff in the fridge. And I go for the stuff in the fridge.
I get it. I get it. Very dippable.
Yes, indeed. Well, that is. Nobody thought that they were going to hear about mayonnaise and ranch today. Well, that ranch they probably would have eventually guessed at, but they would never have tuned into From the Middle thinking we're going to learn how to make mayonnaise.
No, well, maybe they would. Maybe that's exactly what some people are here for.
What is a Midwest podcast where they probably talk about ranch and like mayonnaise, homemade mayonnaise, whatever white people stuff is?
I don't think we could have been more stereotypical with the first 20 minutes of this episode than to talk about mayonnaise and ranch. Oh, Lord. If you're listening for the first time, this is not a normal topic for us, but it kind of is. So, there's that. Anyways, did you have a nice weekend? Did you guys do anything fun?
Yeah, so baseball tournament is going on with Isaac, which is cool, which is fun. His first season of baseball, he was on a bad team that really had a hard time winning, and tournament season ended very quickly. And this time around, tournament season isn't ending as quickly, and it's fun and getting into the we're moving on kind of feeling, and then it's different having that feeling when it's your kids playing the game. And all of us as fans of different teams can relate to how different and eminent playoffs feel when your team is in it. And I feel like his team has potential. They could potentially win the whole thing. And so that just, it makes the tournament feel that much more eminent, but in like a sweet way. It's hard to imagine. We had a very cute moment in the last game where the coach is on the other team. The coach's daughter is playing, and there's a few girls scattered around the baseball leagues. It's popular at this age for the girls to play baseball and then eventually move on to softball. And then the general thought there is they're that much more experienced, right? And you could tell that she hasn't gotten a lot of hits from the plate. And her last at bat, it was a situation, her team was down by a couple of runs and they didn't end up winning, but that's beside the point. She was at bat with 2 outs left. And it was do or die for her. And lo and behold, she got a hit. She hit a legitimate single, ran to first base. Her dad was the first base coach, and she ran through the bag straight to him, jumped up into his arms. They did like the whole slow motion spin around thing, like she's hugging him. It was, everybody was crying and, oh my gosh, look at that. It was the cutest moment I've ever seen at a kid's baseball game. I loved it so much.
That's awesome. You've not seen a sight like that since your mayonnaise came out of the fridge, you know? Like that's just one of those moments you're so proud of.
Yeah.
That is sweet though, because like when the parent is the coach, how often do you get to have moments like that where like you get to celebrate? Normally it's like, 45 minutes later, then they come off the field and you can be like, great job. But like just
Yeah.
to be able to just lean into that moment with your kid.
Yeah. Her dad was the first base coach, and she just like her job was to get the hit and then like run straight to him and celebrate.
Yeah.
Like that was awesome. I loved
Yeah.
it. I loved that.
That's great.
What about
Yeah.
you? What about your weekend?
Yeah, we had a nice weekend. We had some errands to run and then watched some college football. And Corey and Sherry and Case actually came over last Friday. They came over and hang out for the evening, and we had some dinner. We made dinner, which was fun. And maybe we'll talk about that when Corey gets back. But we had a nice time, and college football was awesome. Ohio State beat Michigan State. That was fun. Jeremiah Smith, if you're following Ohio State at all, just looks phenomenal. The whole question of him versus Marvin Harrison Jr.'s legacy, and already
Already starting like
all
4 games in to
wild.
his college career, and this is what they're talking. Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, it's nuts. Just multiple one-handed catches and just really, really great game for us, not for Michigan State. Sorry, not sorry. And we had a really had a really great time. Then flip to check out and I gotta say before I move on, the running back blocking so that Will Howard for Ohio State, so that Will Howard could get some of those passes off, and Devin Brown got a pass off. Crazy. Like
Mhm.
won't show up on the stat line, but man, Travion Henderson was like putting up some awesome blocks for the QBs. So that was really, really cool as well. But anyways, then we flipped to the Georgia Bama game. Did you get to watch that or see any
Oh,
highlights?
I watched it. I had to go. I had to wake up early on Sunday, and oftentimes I'll stay up anyway and watch the game. That one, I kept feeling bad for Georgia, and literally, I watched the last play of the third quarter and was like, "Well, I know how this story ends." I didn't know how the story ended
Yeah.
until I woke up the next morning and looked at the box score, and I was like, "Holy cow!" And then I started in the Yahoo app reading through the plays. Was like, "Geez, Louise, I should not have gone to bed."
Yeah, it was like a Big 12 shootout is what it looked
It
like
was
at the end of that
insane.
game. Just big play after big play after big play. And normally the SEC, obviously they're dominant, but a lot of the games are kind of, I don't want to say a lot, that's not fair. Some of the games are kind of boring because they're typically more defense. It's not always the most exciting if you're not watching your team dominate on defense. But man, that one was wild. So I'm glad we flipped
Mhm.
over to catch the tail end of that. And then you get classic Big Ten Midwestern matchups like Oregon, UCLA.
Yep.
Classic West
Yep.
Coast Big Ten Midwest games. But that Georgia Bama game was nuts. And, sometimes you watch those games and you just feel like if both teams could lose, that would be great. You know, um, not possible, but would be great if both could have lost.
It was so much fun. I went into that game. So I watched the rest of that game. Um and I went into it rooting for Alabama. And rooting is a strong word, but Alabama is who I was wanting to win.
Sure.
And because everybody had not really written Alabama off, but most people were picking Georgia in that game. The conversation this year has been Texas and Georgia and Ohio State, and then kind of everybody else. And
Yeah.
Alabama just kind of happened to be at the top of that everybody else list. So I was pulling for Alabama as an underdog in my mind. And then the game starts playing. And as the game starts playing, my heart sort of switched unbeknownst to me. And I found myself hoping for Georgia to pick things up. And so then I started rooting for Georgia. And so then by the time the third quarter ends, my emotion was, this one's done. Because at that point, I had completely switched over to wanting Georgia to win because they were clearly the underdog as the game played out. And then I'm kicking myself for not sticking through it.
Yeah. Yeah, I get it. It was really wild to watch. And I would say that my wife is modestly interested in college football. Is that an appropriate way to say it? Slightly interested, a little bit interested. Even she was like on the edge of her seat watching the end of that game. It was pretty
Yeah.
cool.
For
Um,
those who didn't see it or don't want to look it up but are wondering what happened, Georgia mounted a giant fourth quarter comeback, and then Alabama ended up winning with a field goal late.
yeah, and it was like
But
a unlikely touchdowns back and forth, several in a row. Like,
yeah,
oh, well, there's not much time left. They'd need a huge play to even try to get back. And then it happened. And then the
yeah,
other team did it. And then the other team did it. And it was just like that shouldn't have happened that way
yeah.
back to back. So it's pretty cool. But Alabama ended up winning. And so yeah, that one was really cool. And then one thing that was interesting, I was chatting with Sherry when she was here with Corey and Case, and we were talking a little about college football, and she said, I was mentioning the Pac-12. The Pac is back. They've officially started adding teams. And she's like, you just have always been so into the conferences, like the conference realignment. And I don't know that I like that the conferences are changing, but I do track it. And I don't know if you feel this way at all. So I thought I would ask, since we're talking about college football, does the conference realignment interest you at all in regards to who actually wants to be playing one another? And what I mean by that is, as an example, when Texas A&M left the SEC or left the Big 12 for the SEC, and the story was, and I don't know if this is true, like, the A&M people didn't want to be in the same conference with Texas, and they wanted to be in the SEC and try to get a leg up on recruiting. And, they didn't really want to be associated with one another anymore. But I feel like the fans still really wanted to see that game played.
Mm-hmm.
It's always kind of interesting to me who is still wanting, like the rivalries, and who wants to play who and who's more apathetic. And that's the kind of bit of like drama that I enjoy. I don't necessarily like that all the conferences are changing, but I do think the story behind some of the games and the teams liking and not liking each other is interesting. Like BYU and Utah finally ending up in the same conference after they were and then they weren't, and now they're back and they hate each other. And that part I find interesting. Do you follow the conference changing stuff at all? Is it interesting to you in any way? Or are you just like, I just, follow
I'd
them?
say it's interesting to me that the conference realigning stuff is interesting to me on more of a macro level than that, I think.
Yeah.
I'm thinking big picture, like where's college football going? Are we moving away from the NCAA, which a lot of people are talking about, and the stronger the few top conferences get, and the more pull they have, and the more dollars they have to pull versus what the other smaller and shrinking conferences have, is that going to create a new league? And
Yeah.
like I like thinking about that stuff a little bit more. The team by team stuff to me is interesting to the teams that I really care about, right?
Yeah.
In the same way that like when Notre Dame decided to no longer contract with Michigan, it was a big deal to me when that happened.
Right.
Um,
That's the kind of stuff I'm talking about, but I
Yeah.
enjoy it in all conferences, not just in the teams that I
Right.
follow. But I
Yeah.
understand what you're saying, because the macro thing is interesting too. Like there's rumors today the Big Ten and SEC are continuing conversations. Is it going to be an unholy alliance, this scheduling super league that they're essentially trying to potentially target?
Yeah.
And, that does feel like where it's headed. Meanwhile, you've got the Pac-12 for anybody that I guess doesn't follow all the news. Mass exodus, bunch of teams left for the Big 12 and the Big 10. There's two teams left, Oregon State and Washington State. And they've basically got about a year to add up to 8 members, or they sort of lose out on who they are. So they've poached a handful of teams from the Mountain West, and it remains to be seen who's left. So I think as of now, Washington State and Oregon State have added Boise State, Colorado State, San Diego State. There's some others, I'm sure. Utah State. probably one or two more. But that's so they're trying to rebuild something of a conference, and they've
Right.
sort of courted the idea of maybe some American athletic teams or whatever. So probably not interesting to most people. It is interesting to me, but the Super League thing is funny that you said that because fans don't seem to like that with what we would call soccer that's happening in Europe.
Hmm.
They don't seem to want that to happen. And then here you've got the Big Ten and SEC seeing dollar signs, and they're pretty much trying to make it happen. And I feel like they've got to be seeing the soccer thing happening in Europe and
Yeah.
knowing that this might be a bad idea.
Maybe. I mean, we still officially now with the way the college playoff works, we're recognizing like Power Five conferences that like that's going to have to get redefined at some point here in the future. And but then even when you look at those, like even now, you could say we could pretend that that exists, but it's clearly right now Big Ten and SEC can probably manipulate the entire rest of the Power Five, right? It's it's not so the Power Five could get together and have a meeting and decide we're going to do this with the NCAA or we're going to do this with NIL or whatever. And that's but in the back rooms, you know that it's okay. Well, really, it was the Big Ten and SEC wanted this and just kind of like forced everyone else into it.
Yeah, it's the Big Ten and SEC are mom and dad, and all the other conferences are the kids. And sure, we all get a vote as a family, but at the end of the day, dad and mom's votes count for two, not one.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's
It's like
all that works
it's
out.
like asking your kids what they want to do for vacation when you already planned the thing, and really what you're doing is you're manipulating their thoughts. If they don't give you the answer you want, you say, "Well, but have you thought about this? And have you thought about that?" And then finally, when they come around to your way of thinking because you manipulated them into it, then you're like, "Well, I've got a surprise for you."
You're gonna love what I've planned.
It's
Yeah.
that
Uh,
kind of thing.
yeah, it's exactly that kind of thing. Well, I do still love college football, but this does feel like a great time to pause as much as we love college football and hear from some of our friends in Oddbods Media.
If you like fun, then you're going to love the Beard Owl podcast. It's a podcast where we talk about two of the greatest things in the world, beer and Weird Al. And frankly, we talk more about Weird Al than anything because he's the gift that keeps on giving. So join us as we talk through Weird Al's career, what he means to us, and we have some very special guests on to discuss the magic that is Alfred Matthew Yankovic. Beard Al, part of the Odd Pods Media Network.
All right. So speaking of things we're watching, I went to watch Agatha All Along, which I've been watching on Disney Plus, and I was going to watch it on the iPad because it was late and I wanted to turn it up and have the screen close to my face so I could watch it and not have scary sounds and creepy music playing loudly in the house at nighttime. So I grabbed the iPad and I grabbed my headphones. And I've had my headphones for a very long time. They've one of several pairs, and they've been used really well. They're well worn at this point. And I noticed the cushions were flaking on the ear cups of my headphones. And I immediately was like, I got to order more cushions. I knew where to get them, used to work for the company, went to order them. And I know there's cheap alternatives. I know there's cheap knockoff versions of these cushions on Amazon, but I wanted to buy directly from the manufacturer. And I knew I was paying more than I had to pay. But I also know how much I like the ones from the manufacturer. So I went straight to them and bought them and paid more than I had to. Not an obscene amount more. I'm not rich. I don't mean that, but just more than I had to because of the knockoffs on Amazon. So I say all of that to say, and there was a related story there too. But are you the kind of person that do you have anything like that you just know you're like, I'm not going to buy the knockoff accessory for the thing. I'm going to get the official thing and I'll pay more for it and I don't care because I want the official version of the thing. Maybe it's an accessory, maybe you're an electronics guy, so I feel like you'll relate to this one. My soundbar is the same. I know eventually the one at soundbar in my living room, the remote's going to die. And
Right.
the original manufacturer's remote is going to cost more than some knockoff infrared remote on Amazon that I could buy. But I'm going to end up wanting to pay a little more. Do you get that way with your electronic stuff? Or are you willing to skimp on accessories and stuff a little bit if you can save a few bucks?
Yeah, no, I'm generally, well, funny, the remote thing, I know that I've gone the universal remote route on stuff, and sometimes I've been happy and sometimes haven't. Sometimes I wasn't happy with the remote that got lost, and so
Mhm.
I'm looking to change something anyway.
Fair.
I feel like that's a very low risk situation, to because you can literally go to Meyer and buy one, and
Yeah,
then,
sure.
you know. But no, I think like replacing components on things, I'm totally about being brand specific on those things for various reasons. Like you know it's going to fit,
Yeah.
right? The third party ones, a lot of times you order those things and you find out they tried to make something relatively universal across a few different brands of things in an effort to save money for themselves. And as a result, they came up with something that kind of sort of maybe works for some of the brands.
Right.
You end up with that, or you end up, in your case, the part that's actually touching your skin, you like the way that feels.
Right.
And so just replace that experience directly. Yeah, no, I tend to go brand specific on things of that nature. I'm trying to think of a moment other than remotes where I wouldn't. How about this? There's two kinds of third party markets out there. There is the third party market full of established brands in and of themselves who make it their business to research and upgrade and give features that maybe people want in a thing. So if it's ear cups on headphones, they might be saying these ones are actually better than the ones that came with your Bose in these ways. Or if you're looking for something that felt like this or looked like that or whatever, this one performs as well. But it also has, like, we did some research on these. And sometimes those might be actually a little bit more expensive.
Yeah.
Or about the same price, maybe a little cheaper, but it's still coming from an established company that's trying to offer that kind of upgrade service versus, the cheap Chinese product that is like the same packaging, but it's being sold under 14 different names on Amazon, and
Yeah.
versus that's just trying to give you something cheap. So I could see going into the other third party, the first one that I'd mentioned, and trying to upgrade something in that way or fix a problem that maybe the original presented. But no, I don't want to go into the other world that much when it comes to replacing components, especially on electronics.
Yeah, you just brought up the fact that the entire aftermarket thing exists for every product. And now I know I'm completely wrong and an idiot for even bringing that up. But it's good to know. And I feel like a related version of that Corey's not here, but I feel like I can answer because I'll give a specific example I think he would care about where he would agree with me.
Mm-hmm.
If he wanted different shoelaces for his Nikes, there's no chance I could see him ordering the cheap shoelaces off of Amazon. There's no chance. He ain't doing it. I could say with almost 100% certainty he would be like, never. But now there's the whole car aftermarket part and I can buy higher end versions of the thing that, to your point, that even came on the thing. And so I'm an idiot and was wrong. But there are some examples that do work. And
So, well, think the shoelace thing. Like he probably wouldn't want. Well, it's Corey, so he wants like the ones that Nike is putting on the shoes to begin with, and probably the same color. But there are people out there like runners and others who they don't want the cheap shoelaces from Dollar Tree to replace their broken shoelaces, but what they might want are the no tie, like elastic bungee style, and they might want to try that kind of shoelace instead. So it's still a third market shoelace, but it's a different buy than replacing the original with the cheap.
Yeah. See, this is why we talk about things, so that when I learn that I'm wrong, I can say, you know what? I'm wrong.
Well, you're not wrong.
Well, I'm not wrong totally, but you brought up a whole thing I wasn't even considering when I initially said the thing. And so it's a great point. And An example that would apply for me in that situation was for a long time, the brand Logitech made really nice universal remotes called Harmony remotes.
Mhm.
And I would, if they still made them, I would totally consider, if the price was comparable, buying a Harmony remote for my non-Logitech soundbar because I know they're a well-established third-party maker of goods, or were in the past. I don't think they make them anymore. But anyways, that's an example that would have fixed my problem. That wouldn't have been an original manufacturer.
Yeah. Or like
So,
I'm a fanboy for Anchor products,
yeah.
charging and cables and things like that instead of buying Apple's branded stuff.
It's funny you say that, and I don't know if this will work. I can't get it on the camera. It's so close. It's so close. My little
Yeah.
phone, my little wireless charger that
Yeah.
sits by my computer for work, sits right here. It's Anchor because they do a nice job. They make nice stuff.
They sure do.
They had a battery pack that broke. They wouldn't replace, but other than that, they make nice stuff. So
See, they replaced a whole like over $100 little power strip kind of thing that I had like a year later for me. So I had a good, but anyway, Anchor, and another thing to mention there is like Anchor themselves, a third market company,
yep.
has their own knockoffs. There's people knockoffing Anchor. You
Oh,
have third
sure.
parties for the third party.
Yep, sure. It totally makes sense. So if anybody has anything, great examples of things that they love, that are nice third party, or things that were crappy third party, but were totally worth it because they didn't want to pay more, let us know. I'd be interested to find out. Speaking of things we're watching, what have you been watching recently? You been streaming anything?
So I've been watching a lot more sports lately, mainly because of the time of year. I'm a Detroit Tigers fan, and the Tigers just made the playoffs, which was a stunt. They had a heck of a stretch at the end of the year to make that happen. I'm excited about that. Football is back, obviously, watching a lot of that, but also this all started because wrestling is no longer, the SmackDown is no longer on Fox. It went to USA Network. I don't have a way to watch USA Network. And so I shopped around ways to watch USA Network, and basically you have to have one of these cable like streaming platforms or cable. And so thought about it, contemplated it, signed up for a trial, talked with the wife, and did some soul searching about what it is I really want out of my television based media.
Mm-hmm.
And decided to sign onto Sling TV, which I'm enjoying so far. Which is one of these. It's basically cable. Your streaming cable is what you're doing, and that's going to work through the end of the year. And then Monday Night Raw is heading over to Netflix. After that, well, it is beautiful, I suppose, but then like that screws me over again.
Oh,
and the way it's going to work now is if somebody wants to stream just the basic SmackDown and Raw for WWE, and then if they want to watch the premium events, they have to have 3 different subscriptions to do this.
Oh, that's no good.
Yeah, it's super obnoxious. So I'm not a fan of that, which means I'm probably going to stop being into wrestling because I don't want to maintain that situation. And so, which begs the question, I thought about this, like when I was defining for myself years ago about cutting cable, that was before I had any streaming, with the exception of Amazon Prime, because everybody has Amazon Prime. And then at some point I added a Netflix account to that. And so I had just those 2 things, and then I had antenna TV. And if you live close enough to a city, digital antenna gets you your local channels perfectly fine, and it gets you PBS and a bunch of stuff that you're not going to watch, but it gets you those. So nationally broadcasted sports, you can watch like for free in your home right now if you live anywhere near a big city. And so in my world, that was the definition of cutting the cable. And so now I'm wondering, am I no longer a cable cutter? for getting back into the cable type channels, even though I'm not physically reinstituting a cable connection to my TV. It's still streaming, but I'm streaming the cable channels. Do I consider myself a cable cutter still?
I don't know.
Because I tell you what, like I'm right now, we still have some subscriptions that we signed on for a year on Black Friday last year because we got super good deals on them. And we might be able to do that again this year with different email addresses or something. But if that's not the case, like I'm going to have Amazon Prime and Sling TV, and that's all I'm going to have for a while. So like I'm not streaming as far as like into streaming platforms. I'm into streaming as far as the cable channels plus Amazon Prime.
I think it's still streaming.
I
think we
it's still.
Do we feel
you
like
think
we
it's still
can
cable
confidently
cut?
say if you've got an actual box in your house, you have cable or
Okay.
satellite, but we'll call both cable. If it's streaming through an app and that's the only source of the thing you have, you just have a streaming package is really
Okay.
what it boils down to. And maybe eventually, we will refer to that as cable when all the boxes are gone and there's enough good internet that pretty much everyone can get rid of boxes because it's got to save them money, right? They don't have to ship you the thing for you to install and call their people. And it's, hey, go to the thing you already use to do the streaming thing and plug in the details and stream on. Couple things. I've never had Prime ever once in my life.
Oh, how about that?
I've never been a Prime customer. I've borrowed Prime logins for things, but I've never
Yeah.
had Prime myself for shipping or for streaming or for music or for gaming when they had that or all the other services they've canceled. So I'm kind of a big dull dud that way. Also, I feel like I need to share this. I thought this was kind of neat. If you didn't know, there's lots of great antennas that you can buy that are digital that just screw into your TV or that you can connect. And if you go to the FCC website, you can probably just Google FCC DTV, digital TV, DTV reception maps, and you can put in a zip code and it'll actually tell you the signal quality of all the channels in your area based on your zip code. So if
There
you
you
want to
go.
know what channels you can get and how good the signal is, you can literally just go to a website and check and then see if it's worth to even buy an antenna.
Yeah.
So that's kind of a fun thing that I learned if people didn't know that existed.
Yeah. Yeah. I highly like my entire adult life. I've been using an antenna, a digital antenna when I could get one. And I mean, I remember back in the day when they switched over from one type of signal to the digital signal that they have now. And they were making sure everybody knew that your old antenna isn't going to work unless you have this converter box.
Yep.
Like, and you could apply in the state of Ohio, you could get a free one, and I got a free one.
Nice.
And so I've been watching antenna TV my entire adult life. And now I have a football game going on right now in the room.
Nothing wrong
Perfectly fine. Like you can get a good digital antenna for $20, like at Lowe's right now, and plug it in and no subscription. It's just there.
Yep.
So
yeah, it's totally true. And I think the streaming thing too is tricky because they're intentionally, I was just having this conversation. My wife was talking about it with my mother-in-law, her mom, about why wasn't the Buckeye game on? Why wouldn't they want people watching it on this? And it was only on Peacock. And I'm like, because they make more money selling packages of things to different companies. So it's the same with wrestling. They're going to make money by splitting up all the content and pushing it out. And eventually people will just not. They're just going to only pay for whatever they can actually watch. Or they're going to do what we've talked about in the past, which is sign up for something, use it for a while, cancel it, move on to something else, and it is what it is. I know people that do that with sports all the time. Turn it on for a couple months, watch college football and NFL, turn it back off, and go about your day. So it'll be interesting to see. I think there'll be some more consolidation in the streaming thing. But speaking of streaming and getting back to cable, this absolutely ties into something that I thought was kind of interesting. Disney Plus is currently testing live streams And there's currently what, one, two, three, four, five, six, seven something different channels that they're testing. One of them is called Playtime. So it's live 24-hour a day, just kid shows, stuff that's on Disney Plus. Then
Mhm.
there's one called Throwbacks. So obviously meant to be like the Freaky Friday with Lindsay Lohan was playing when I saw it earlier. There's
Okay.
one that's news, like an ABC news station, but it's probably just clips and things. One
Mhm.
called Real Life, which I'm guessing is a bunch of their National Geographic content because they own National
Mm.
Geographic. One called Hits and Heroes, which had pictures of like Star Wars and Marvel characters. And then one called Holostream, which was probably playing all Halloween content. And I think it's kind of brilliant actually, and I think they're going to end up wanting to make more of these channels because like sometimes you get a little bit of that analysis or paralysis, whatever, and you
Mhm.
just can't figure out what to watch. And I think people will end up just going to those going, yeah, whatever, and just turning it on, and it
Yeah,
just it's
they'll
on.
think they're stumbling across this big new idea of channel surfing when it's
Yeah, yeah,
well, let me tell
this
you
is
about
great.
the 90s.
I don't even have to think about what to pick. I can just select this and it'll play thematically similar things that I enjoy. But I kind of love it and I hope they do
Yeah.
more. I think they need to do I'm already giving them more ideas and they literally just rolled out the feature. But I think they need to do like the golden age of like all the original Disney movies on a channel, the really old stuff, and then do like a bunch of like the 90s and early 2000s stuff, and then do like a Pixar channel. Star Wars should be its own channel. I feel like the MCU could be a channel where it's literally the entire watch order of chronological watch order of MCU all day, every day. And I feel like lots of people would just turn that on and watch it.
Yeah.
I don't even think people would mind. Same with Star Wars. If they just
Mhm.
had constant the whole timeline just on repeat, and they could even sync it so the best movies are on at the highest peak time. So like the
Right.
original trilogy is on from 4 o'clock to 10 o'clock, and then they move into the other movies and just. But I kind of love it. The fact that it's embedded in the app, and I want to try it and see if it's got some sticking power as a feature, and if it actually makes me watch more on there, or if it's just kind of a fad. Like I use it a few times and then never turn it on again. Would Is there any app that you would use that for if they made a channel for a show or kinds of shows that you like? Like if NBC did one with like Friends and The Office and Seinfeld, would you
Mhm.
sit and just let something like that roll?
Yeah, I would. There are times when I especially trying to find kid friendly stuff for me. So like the kids are in the room or at least in the area and I don't want to watch some of the things that I typically might want to watch for that reason. It'd be and all they want to watch are Mr. Beast and people playing Minecraft. And that literally drives me crazy. And so it'd be nice to just like put something on
Yeah.
so that like nobody has to pay attention to it. I'm maybe kind of interested in it. Maybe I'm not, doesn't matter, but at the very least it's not obnoxious to me.
Yeah.
And I'm not worried about the kids sitting down and watching it for 5 minutes.
Right.
That'd be good.
And I feel like so I have the Disney version of Disney Plus with no ads. I've not watched this long enough to know how it works. I don't know if there's ads. I don't know if they transition between things like TBS does, where like as soon as the credits start rolling, that the first show moves into a little box in the corner and the new show starts and the audio cuts for the credits.
Yeah.
If they do something like that with no commercials, that's super freaking interesting because sometimes even on like Hulu, it'll be like a kids movie and an ad will come on because we have the ad version of that, and it's like a horror movie in the middle of like a kids
Mhm.
movie on Hulu or stuff on YouTube with ads, and you're like, gosh, I don't want my kids seeing all this crap on just like they're trying to watch a kid show. I don't, and so I think it could be really interesting. I'd be curious to know how many people eh, poll 1,000 people, how many people would actually sit like, yeah, I'd turn that on. Like back to where cable was, no commercials when it started. Just turn on things and there's always something on TV to watch. I'm curious how many people will use it. I guess TBD. If Disney cancels it in 3 months, we'll know that nobody was watching it.
Yeah, as we've talked about before, it's gotten way too easy for places like this to just try stuff.
Yeah.
Um, yeah.
I don't think we ever got to got to use what was it like the co-watch feature where you could like sync Disney Plus at your
Oh,
house with
yeah.
like somebody else's and you could watch the same movie at the same time.
That's gone.
Yeah, that feature's been gone for a while now. Like, so clearly people weren't using it. This feels different though. This doesn't feel like trying to sync up a movie. This is like I can mindlessly throw this on and just let it play in the background for
Mhm.
however many hours I want noise.
Yeah, I could see it because you can't have the TV not on.
Right, of course. That would be
That's-
bizarre.
That's
Yeah.
just dumb.
Clearly got to be playing something. People were doing that already. Let's not pretend. They were just doing it with like 10 seasons of The Office and just
Right. Yeah.
letting The Office play for hours a day.
I hear you. Well, speaking of broadcast TV, have you? My wife and I do enjoy Jeopardy and not Price is Right, Wheel of Fortune. Maybe that's because we're on our 40s now.
Sure.
But Ryan Seacrest made his debut here now a couple of weeks ago as the new host to Wheel of Fortune, which I just wanted to say he's doing an outstanding job. He's doing a wonderful job.
That's great.
My wife even said, if I close my eyes and think of a younger Pat Sajak, like it's almost like he studied Pat Sajak's cadence or something. Like it just feels so seamless and correct that Ryan Seacrest is in there now. I
Him
love it.
having obscene amounts of hosting gigs probably helps him out quite a bit.
Yeah.
He's literally the only person in all of Hollywood who is legally allowed to host anything. So works out great for his experience. But seriously, that's nice to hear that he's working out. Weren't they trying people for a while? Wasn't that on?
That was Jeopardy.
Oh,
Jeopardy dragged it on and on and on and on and on.
Yeah.
And eventually landed on what like the first time everybody saw Ken Jennings, I feel like every Jeopardy fan was like, that's him. That's the guy. Just do
Makes sense.
Why are you trying all these other people? Like we already saw the guy that you need to do. And then now they've finally settled on Ken Jennings and yes, they were correct. Like Ken Jennings is very good.
Makes sense. Yeah.
At what he's doing. So.
We've talked on the podcast, Corey and I, about our grandmother passed away a few years ago, and she was the daily Jeopardy and Wheel of Fortune watcher. Wheel especially was her sweet spot.
Mm-hmm.
I think she would have been happy with the Ken Jennings, Ryan Seacrest TBD. But if he's doing a good job, I appreciate that. And it was very nice. It was a very nice mental picture imagining you and Amy on the couch with like quilts on your legs, spooning mayonnaise out of a glass jar while you said, I really like that Ryan Seacrest. He seems like a neat guy, It's just very Midwesterny, this whole episode.
Very Midwesterny. Yeah. So, and just to put this out there for the Jeopardy politicians out there, sure. I also was a fan of Mayim Bleak. She was also phenomenal. If it wasn't going to be Ken Jennings, she would have easily been my second choice. So I was happy with the little duo that they had there for a little while. I would have been perfectly fine with that. I don't even remember what happened with Mayim, but
yeah, she's a smart cookie. I always get that vibe from her that she's very sharp, very funny, very sharp. And I think she would have done a great job. And that probably feels like I'm talking down to her as a female by saying smart cookie. I would have used the same term for a guy. She seems, she's just always come across that way. She's very knowledgeable and great in conversation and easy to talk to. So I think she would have been fine. But if Seacrest is crushing it, I get it.
Mm-hmm.
Good for him. He's got the best agent in town when it comes to that kind of gig. So good for him.
Does. He sure does. And then I think the right move too. So Vanna White, it originally was going to retire with Pat Sajak, and then later made the decision not to. So she's still there, and which I think that the entire late night game show crowd appreciates that and doesn't want to see Vanna White go anywhere. I also think the entire crowd is also of the opinion of once she's gone, let's not replace her. let's just let that right now. It's a token job. Like she doesn't need to be there anymore. She's not physically turning anything around. Um, but yeah, I mean, you got to have her if she's still willing to do it. And I like that she's there. But when she leaves, let's don't pretend like we need to replace her.
Yeah, I just want to give a shout out to her for maintaining that role for so long and being such a fan favorite, because some people go through their whole life and work very hard and have little to show for it. And she's probably made bank for quite some time. And I know there was a whole thing with her feeling like she should earn more. I don't mean that, but like that's also not like a high intensity kind of job, is what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
She's been able to do that for a very long time and collect a regular paycheck, being able to do that, and good for her.
Indeed.
I think that's awesome. And I agree. I think if she goes, I think you can just let the letters reveal themselves on the screens or whatever and call it a day.
Yes.
Yeah. Maybe even a statue of Vanna off to the side where she could just be like gesturing. Like
maybe one on a track that just rolls across.
Yeah. It's like Home Alone when he puts the cardboard cutouts on a train and they just like in circles back and forth. Vanna could just go around the stage like a cardboard cutout.
Exactly.
That'd be awesome.
Yeah.
Oh man. Any other updates? We gonna round this one out?
No, I wanted to make sure we talked about Cardboard Vanna. Other than
that was the end game for this episode, really.
We needed to make sure we got to that.
Yeah.
No. Hey, artiusman.com is a website. It is spelled artiusman.com.
Mm-hmm.
And if you put that into your URL box thing and hit enter, then what you're going to find is men's grooming products predominantly. They also have candles and some apparel. But the reason why you're there is to make yourself feel better, is to make yourself smell better, and to be more put together, and for your face to stop itching, and for your hair to be clean.
Preach.
Or you're there so that somebody who you love will step up their game a little bit.
Yeah.
Both of those things can occur. Try out a bunch of stuff. They do have sometimes sample sizes and travel sizes if you want to try scents and things like that. But everything that I have purchased from them, which has been a lot of stuff, I have enjoyed and like and still use to this day. They don't pay me to use their stuff. They don't give me anything. I buy it off the website, just like you're going to do. When you go and put the middle into the discount code at checkout and receive 25% off if it's your first purchase there at the site. But then afterward, they also remember you and they're like, hey, From the Middle sent you, and we appreciate that about From the Middle. And so they help us. You can help yourself. You can help us. And it helps a company that we like and believe in.
That's true. And they have candles. I know we're getting to that season in the Midwest where it's getting colder and people like comfy blankets and people like candles. And that's a great time to go throw some stuff in that cart. And also the holidays will be upon us before we even realize it. And you're going to be saying, shoot, I really should have gotten some extra stuff so that I had more stocking stuffers and more gifts and more things for the holidays. Well, here's your chance. We're telling you about it right now. And you can save a whole bunch of money with promo code The Middle at rdsman.com. That's a great segue to the end of the episode. Please go support them. It helps them. You get awesome stuff, and it helps us too. And they're an awesome partner here in Central Ohio, and we super appreciate them. So we hope you'll go check some stuff out and think about some of your shopping needs while you imagine a cardboard Vanna White rolling around while you scoop mayonnaise into your mouth hole. With that, I think we're done. Thank you, everybody, so much for listening. Next week, Corey's back, so you can have a much funnier episode, and hopefully he'll have some great travel stories. Thanks.
Peace.